Welcome to I Don't Know Unity. This one is probably better kept as I Don't Know Programming or Web Development or HTML or JavaScript or TypeScript. This is an application in babylon.js. So if you haven't seen babylon.js, it's a 3D library. I think 3JS is the one that it's commonly kind of compared to. I haven't used 3JS a ton, but I've found babylon.js to be pretty easy and straightforward. I think they were actually both made around the same time, and I think 3JS has slightly more popularity. I can't really say one way or the other. Anyway, for some reason, myself and some people I work with decided to use it as kind of our main tool for 3D library. And playground.babylon.js has some examples, and I think you can do a lot of your own stuff in there. And then there's pretty much an example for nearly any use case that you might have, any sort of issue or what things can be done in it. So here's an example of ball against a screen. Let's see, some mesh stuff, which this one was actually kind of used. So let's see. I mean, it wasn't this exact one, but the idea was. So let me go into, this is one implementation we have in Babylon in the application that we've been building. So the application is built for football and essentially drawing lines, diagramming football plays and animating them to some extent. And so in the web, we played around a little bit. This is what a football play, what most diagrams kind of look like. And really the problem we were trying to solve, or that was a problem for me, was the size of the scale. So I closed that video, image, but I guess you go back this one, right? Like this is a pretty similar formation, I think. In fact, I think it's the same one. And you can kind of see like these 5-7 guys right here, they exist well within these boundaries with this guy sitting, out there, and you can see this. I think if you broke it down into certain spacing, the scales just get way off. So that's what really all of this came out of, is I was struggling to understand the scales and the spacing, both due to just not having to deal with it when I was playing, and also probably head injury stuff. So let's go into, here is kind of the final output. This is a diagram from above. When we draw things, we have, we've been calling them pointers, or really it's just an assignment. In football, you generally either block or you're running. So if you're running, it's usually an arrow, and if you're blocking, it's usually this flat line. Now, these were a piece of it that really didn't have to do with Babylon, but I struggled a pretty good amount with it, mostly because it's just a lot of math, and I just kept like banging on it till it worked. So I don't really know anything about radians, or, I was able to get the direction of a line pretty well, and then kind of just stumbled into getting the offset, which you would think should be really easy and I shouldn't have had a problem with. I was tired, and also realistically don't know what I was doing there. So let me open up this a little bit. So now that's kind of what we're doing. The setup, I think sometimes like I really struggle to get going because I get like really bent up on how I should configure a project. I think what I did, and I'll have to go double check, but I think the original one, and I've kind of documented the progress as I went here, but I think the first one I did was just kind of starting with, let's see, is this the playground? So yeah, I think there is, I think when you just open up playground, it gives you kind of this basic scene with a ball. So I'm pretty sure I just took that, or there's a download button here, and just threw it into an HTML file. So there's what the starting point was. That's exactly what it looked like. And again, I think I closed it. No, there it is. This was kind of where we're at right now. There's one piece I need to add, which is probably field numbers. There might be some other things too, but I think overall I'm pretty pleased with it. So going into creating it, let's start with the data. This is not pulling live data. I just stuck in like a constant play JSON, which is what we use in diagramming stuff. So we have players, we have their initial starting location, that pointer type or line type is in there. Usually down here you'll see some that are arrows, and then the points that they touch on. So this is player 6, and actually let me find it right now, because this is a big part of why I think if you want to play around with Babylon, knowing that this exists is super helpful. And I just, again, this is a lot of these things I just stumble into, and then I'm like, hey, that's good to know. So this is the scene.debuglayer.show. And this is what it looks like. It's this stuff on the outside. I guess I've only pressed the close button, which I've never really thought about, that maybe you can't really get it back once you do that. I guess maybe if I refresh. Yeah. Apparently they jump out and do other stuff. So materials kind of handles, yeah, you might be coming from Unity if you're, coming from some of the other videos. So materials would be just like you think of, a material in Unity, where it defines like albedo, color, some other stuff like that. And you can, if you take a look at some stuff that, I mean, this isn't a perfect example, but if you look at some of the stuff in the playground, you can see examples of some really well done things. And that's just like the basic documentation ones. Once you get into, I think they have one called demos on the front page. And I'm going to also open up, I don't think that's it. I think I maybe opened it up already. So let's do grid. And the search is pretty awesome too. I mean, like, sure, search, really special, but like, it will pull up, if it's not finding anything interesting, usually somewhere in there is a playground that maybe someone had worked on. I might be able to find one. So let's see. The grid comes up. This is a material in some ways. Oh, here's a cool one. I've never seen that one. Let's see. If we open it, it'll give us that one in a new window. And again, all of this just being super powerful from the point of, oh boy, that is too much for me. That's too much going on. Can I stop it on that button? Cool. Nope, it's just refreshed. All right. So you can, again, just like, oh, I have no idea what I'm doing. Let me start from stealing this stuff. I think that's all I do in like all my life, I would say. This thievery. And so these parts here, you can see the ground material. Is that the ground material? That's default material. Let's see, which ones did I? Okay, this one's like red. Let's see what happens. Yeah, okay. So you can kind of see this line. Over here you can play with, and you can see this one's named Material 1. That one is obviously created on a loop. So let's see, Material 1, well, maybe not on a loop. Maybe it's just a generic one, and I never really change it. So it's possible that you could, well, I don't know. I don't really care about that. So I'm sure it's possible to do a lot of fun things with, but there's no reason to talk about them here. I know from kind of one of the guys I talk with who's a coach that he likes to change the color of nearly everything. Like all the player, icon, character pieces, whatever you want to call them, have different colors. It's bothering me because I'm trying to figure out like an elegant solution for it. But essentially, like, it's probably just going to be like a color picker that, grinds up the UI and makes it hard for anybody who doesn't want to do that, where I don't really care about that at all. So there's materials. I think nodes is another one where it's just kind of super helpful to figure out what's going on. I can't do much with the camera because I think it's locked down, which is good. So the camera on this one is locked into, it can get close and it can go back. It can't go side to side and whatnot. I'm gonna close this guy over here. I don't know. Yeah, we were doing it on this. This is still the same example, right? Like on this one, I can rotate around. It looks like the scroll on the mouse wheel isn't there. So let's go back to that and we can just kind of talk through a bunch of this stuff. Let me also, so here's another one that it's going to come up in a minute. So there's a bunch of spheres on here and you can take a look. There is for var I. There's a little loop here that loops through all of the spheres. And I don't know, we could probably make them closer together or something like that in here. I might have the math wrong again. Okay, I don't know what I did. I made them further apart, sure. To be fair, in this case, I just chose a number, so I'm going to feel okay about that one. The other night when I was working on this, I didn't really feel okay about my ability. I feel hopefully like a high school math teacher doesn't see this. This is another one like you can't see, but I'm trying to use the scroll wheel. So let's go back over here. You can see I just showed you in the version I'm working on that there's a scroll wheel. We walked through the JSON for a minute there. Lots going on in this. It's hard to make this quick. Okay. On setting this thing up, I think I mentioned a minute ago, like I will get just locked down by trying to make it like, oh, I really want it to work quickly. So stole that HTML from downloading in the playground, and then opened up. It's called like Live Reload or something. It's an extension in VSCode. I think VSCode is pretty solid for when you're doing HTML and JavaScript and Python. I think you see a lot of tutorials in that way. So this is live server, development local server with live reload. This will close it, and then when we hit it open, it's pretty useful. I think you already saw that it did the live reload when I did the debug and save and all of those things. So that made this take a lot less time. And here we go. We talked about the play JSON. I really want to stress enough that this is don't do a code review of what I have here. Again, this was kind of like a prototype, and I think there's one or two things that were maybe a little difficult. Yeah, so this does a little parse of stuff, and then I call that later, and then I just start putting everything in this playground class. So create scene, that's a like generic one. Camera. So here in camera, this stuff is where it was locked down by rotation, and I don't think it's too hard. Maybe I've never just come across these things, but lower alpha has never been something I've considered for like a rotation. Yeah, so now you can see like it gets undone. Now someday I'll probably need to lock it to this other side, because you look at things as defense in football versus offense in most of your diagrams. So that's locking those down, sticks a limit on those. The attach control I think is there by default. I don't know where it is. Let's see, mouse, scroll. Here we go, add mouse wheel. So that was one that I ended up having to look into the documentation for, but it's pretty straightforward. The light is generic. I played around with colors in here. It can handle a hex string. I don't even know if I ended up using these. I played around with this grid material for a while, and I think you can understand why. Like a football playing field, it looks like a gridiron. And so I was kind of using that at first, and I knew I wanted to put in these lines and these hash marks again to make that scale correct. But the grid material, and I think I went past it. This one's fine. There's some cool ones that are, I think a little more interesting than this one. But the grid material is in there by default and can be played around with, and it can be mapped to like sides of stuff. I would say, from my perspective, it's kind of like if I want a quick terrain, then a grid material plane like what I have here is pretty. I'm pretty solid. Happy about it. And again, the search and these diving deeper ones, you can find a lot of examples even outside the playground. And I didn't go to it, but featured demos on this stuff. There's just a lot of, like, there's games, and I don't think any of them are, like, the source is available to you, but it can certainly, like, oh, you could do this and see what's going on. And then I think, again, there's, you could export scenes from Unity, like the object stuff, and you could stick that into the web pretty easily, which is nice if you were doing something where you're modeling something that you want to show a client or show a friend. Really, hey, look at this awful scene I made. All right, diffuse specular. For people who are comfortable with Unity, these are going to make more sense than what they did to me. Again, that was one I just kind of hit on for a while till it worked. Okay, so line system versus the lines that are actually there. This is going to be the last thing I touch on, and then I really don't think the most useful thing you could look at in here is to say, oh wow, look at the debugger and all the examples. I can do anything if I just give it enough time. So the line system versus these arrows is, like I was saying, the place that I had the most difficulty, because the line system was working great when I was creating the background. Let's see. Yeah, yeah. So line system here, if I turn them on and off, you can see that's all sort of the field grid. Those worked great. It handled like the for loops and stuff to get them where they needed to be. Worked really well. Now, when I went to do lines like that with where the player assignment arrow line is, I couldn't make it wider, and that was becoming a big issue. I mean, it is a big issue. You need to see those. And so let's see where it is. It's somewhere in here. Control find tube. So the recommendation, and why I bring this up, is because you may stumble into the same problem, and it's create tube that I used, and you could flatten that tube as well. And it took me a long time to find that. So I think there's like a Discord as well, like a solid Discord with a lot of people in it that, if you're playing around with Babylon, you should maybe check out. I did not. I just, figured I could figure it out and figure out how to do the line system, and then it took me forever. And let's see, 0.825. I guess that doesn't increase it too much. Let's do 0.285. Am I clicking the right one? Create tube. 1 of 4. Okay, it's probably one of these other ones. This is a good example of like this thing's pretty messy. Maybe not. Maybe it's not doing any of this stuff. Create tube, left tube. Oh, this is the arrow. This one should definitely be on there. Oh, I might be doing it in the wrong. Yeah, I'm looking at the wrong one. There we go. Beautiful. So you can see those widths. Let's do undo. Let's see what we got here. You can see those get a little larger, and again, I think you can flatten a tube. I didn't play around with it, but that can be useful. So there you go. Quick babylon.js demo of something, made that. Again, this is, just a simplified version of something that was built entirely in Unity, and I think, there's some really powerful pieces of it. Like, if I wanted to spend the time on it, could export those scenes from Unity, make a version where the background is kind of our stadium, or you can import like, what's the word I'm looking for? Models. If you're interested, you should definitely take a look at some of the examples in here. I don't know what else is interesting. I don't find audio all that interesting. Cameras, I think this one like looks kind of cool, but I don't remember. It does handle mobile pretty well. No, this one's not going to load, I guess. So, all right, I'm going to stop. There's definitely a lot to look at there, and that's it. Thanks.